For those of you who don't know, we're the largest vCloud provider in Australia, and we're the largest VMware provider in WA and the fourth largest in Australia. So we have an environment now that rivals most large enterprises, and so we've come across all the problems, all the concerns that people in those industries and people that deal with massive networks have actually gone through. So that can give you guys some of the trust that, hey, we do know our position and we do know our place in the market in the infrastructure as a service space. So maybe if we're going to be talking about something new, that we can actually go through and you guys can have some trust that we have put the effort in and we know what we're doing. These are our key takeaways from the system itself. No hardware cost at all. The biggest thing that I've seen within my kind of time in the industry as a consultant was that the bigger guys that wanted to do DR, they need to have a massive infrastructure spend. You either need to already have that second data center or you need to already have a distributed environment that you can replicate to. You can't just replicate to anything. You'd need to replicate to something significant, something that the business actually wants to run on in a production sense if they had to. So that's where the problem always comes. People either do it or don't do it. And if they do it, it makes it a very tough call to say to the business, hey, we're running off a VNX at the moment. We would need to buy another one of the same size and the same grunt to sit in our DR site and to do nothing for probably ever. That's kind of a hard thing to get across for the business and a hard thing to prove that it's actually needed, unless you had a real scenario, and then sure, the business will chuck you $2 million to fix it for next time, but that's after the problem's already happened. So that's one of the big things that we want to get rid of. Reducing complexity, putting in a big system and a complex system to do what you need it to do and what you want it to do, you need to train up your staff, your in-house staff, a lot. They need to be experts. And if they're not experts or you're not willing to train them, then you need to pay someone to come in as a consultant and set up this massive and immense system for you to give the business what the business says it wants. This product allows you to forget about that and just say to us or to us through an integrator, hey, can you guys set it up? Sweet. And that's kind of it for us. Being able to scale, we don't care about your resource utilisation. If you want to start testing it out with 4 servers and then ramp it up later on, you can do that. If you have on your side, if you've made changes to your environment, you've added VMs, you've changed storage, you've changed networking, the product itself and the DR solution that we're providing doesn't care. It all still runs seamlessly in the background as long as the VMware stack that you're currently running on is contactable through our agents. With the last one, and it's been mentioned before as well, testing it anywhere and at any time. You can do testing, similar to some of the other features, or you can do actual real production failovers once you've gotten confidence in the product and done your 10 or 15 tests to get to that state. And then we've seen some of our customers actually running it in production, failing over, and then failing back after a week or so, just to show the business, hey, we're not just testing it anymore, we're actually running out of our production site, and you guys didn't even know. So the DR as a service thing gets thrown around a lot. I personally, and we personally, don't think that there is such a thing as DR as a service. There's too many facets involved, and most of the components rely upon your business and what your business wants. So there can never be any click button and get DR as a service. What we provide is replication as a service. And that is one of the tools, it's the main tool, but it's one of the tools to get you to that DR, fully DR solution, which involves the other things here as the processes, plans, tiering of your applications, deciding what's important, what's not important, deciding your own RPOs and RTOs. Those are things that still need to happen from within your own business, but they're things that once you have those talks, or once you've engaged us to help you answer those questions, then we'll put on top our product, and then you'll have your full and entire solution. We've mentioned there it's cost versus features. Often when you ask people, do you have DR, have you tested it? Most people say no, but there are some people that say, yep, and we've got a mint one and we do it. These are people that have actually put the significant cost in and the time in. It may have taken them a year or 2 years to do the complete project, and they have actually spent the $1 million setting up their own private data center somewhere else, and they have put in and they've engaged the biggest SAN that just sits there doing nothing, and they've got SAN-to-SAN replication. There are those people, but that comes at the cost of time and physical capital cost. This is something we're hoping that people that want to get to that maturity and that want to have that full DR solution can do it without having to go through that and without having to put their hand up to the CFO and say, look, I'm needing 2 years from most of our IT guys and we're needing all this money. So what is it? Essentially, it's a product that we put in place. At the moment, it's a VMware only product. At the end of the year, it'll be completely agnostic. But what it does, it allows you to replicate anything in your environment through true replication to the other side. And often when you hear things like that, you start to think, oh, is there a performance hit? Is there something that actually interferes with my VMs? It sits just outside the data path of the VM. So anytime a VM wants to write or read from its own disk, we have a watcher which is in the hypervisor that actually sees that traffic go down to the disk or come from the disk, and then clones that and sends it off. This is all done outside the VM, so it's not in the data path of the VM and has zero performance impact whatsoever. It works as an agent that sits in the hypervisor. So as long as you have hosts that are up and running and serving VMs, anything on those hosts are protected at all times with no performance impact. Consistency has always been a big issue with people and VMs. The traditional methods are snapshot-based replication. They're by and large, that's the most common one that we see. And in order to get to that level of consistency, it means snapshots, which means that everything has to go more than likely on the same LUN, so that when you snapshot that LUN, everything's taken across on the same point of time. The problems of that being is your IT guys and your storage admins then are restricted as to what things they can place in what areas. And if they have one very large system that takes up most of the LUN, and they need to snapshot their whole environment, they need to put more things on that LUN, which means that they've reduced or they've removed their own desire to have the LUN design that they wanted or the storage design they wanted, and they're restricted by the solution as to what they can and can't do with their own storage. This doesn't do that because it isn't based upon snapshots. It is in line with the product and actually copies it across. So consistency then is no longer an issue because it watches the VMs and pushes them across. So by that method then, and the fact that there's no snapshots, it means that the actual RPO is driven completely by you. With the fact that it's continuous replication, we're seeing customers that have RPOs of 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and this is like across state. So it then means that for you guys to go back to the business, you don't say, well, we've got the SQL log shipping that can give us at best, an RPO of overnight, or we have these snapshots which at best can give us, within say 15 minutes, but then it means that every time we take a snapshot, the VM goes momentarily offline. It's not much, but it still happens. It means then that you guys can go to your own businesses, on your own business decision makers and say, we have a product now that can do an RPO of 3 seconds and it can bring up a whole environment in your RTO of maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. What do you want to do? Not this is what we can do. You actually go back to them, what do you want to achieve and what's acceptable for you for your business? And they'll invariably come back with different kinds of numbers, and then you just meet those numbers and you hand that back to them and they say we wanted X and you give them X. Really powerful. Talking about the problems it solves, we've already mentioned a few of the problems that it solves. One of them being is that it's a completely software-based solution and completely agnostic, which means that we don't care, as long as you're running a supported version of VMware at the moment, or Hyper-V later on, we don't care what you're running in your environment. We don't care if you change storage halfway through. We don't care if you're towards the end of a refresh cycle and you're going to be buying Dell blades and at the moment you're on HP. It doesn't matter. Same with switching. If you're using fiber channel, iSCSI, NFS, none of these matter because it is completely independent, so which means that for the integrators here, once you have confidence in the solution, any customer you walk towards is always going to be able to be put inside this box and doesn't depend upon, oh no, but we've got this brocade fabric that we need to worry about. They're all problems that just aren't your problems anymore and things that you can work around and just go straight to the customer with a proven solution. The contracts is a big one. And typically speaking, in the physical world, we're talking contracts as in we've just purchased all this equipment on the other side, so we're locked in 3 years, so for that investment over there. Or with a different kind of provider that's going to give you a DR solution, you're locked into a 3-year contract so they can recover their kind of costs. This is something that you can just test and come and go as you please. There's a lot of thought involved, obviously, to get you to a point where you are protecting people's VMs. But once you are there, people can scale up, scale down. You can tell your customer, look, if it's all not working out, let's just turn it off. And you don't pay for the next month. It really is as simple as that. And they can go back to their SQL log shipping if they think that's appropriate for them or that's better for them. Failing over, failing back. You have to give your customers a lot of confidence to be able to physically jump over the other side. So what we're seeing with some of our customers is that we're testing the waters and they're failing over just some test scenarios. And then once they've got confidence in that, they're failing over and ring fencing their whole production environment. So we'll put a virtual desktop into one of our virtual data centers so that when we bring up their environment ring fence, they can see that it's all working. Often, or not often, even earlier as of this morning actually from 7 o'clock, so from West Sydney time, we had a customer actually put their whole production environment failed across. So not testing, not ring fencing. As a test to show their business, they've actually pushed their whole environment across and are right now are running their entire environment out of our SecondSite data center. And then after about a week or so, they're going to do the auto protect and they're going to fail back. This is all things that hasn't actually even been told to their end users because they've gotten enough confidence in the product now that they know that it does just go across and fail back in an orderly fashion from the click of a button on their web console, and there really is no impact to users at all whatsoever. We mentioned about setting up. Setting up is going to be one of the trickier parts of this, and honestly is the same for every single disaster recovery product you have. We can bring VMs up. Everyone can bring VMs up nowadays. You can even go as low as putting it on a hard drive, send it to someone. They can bring it up somewhere else, but then how does that connect back to your current environment? How does that connect back with any other applications you may have? That's always the difficult talks, and the talks are then around, okay, so we've decided that A, we need this. So the networking decides things need to be talked about. And they're things that either you need to talk about with your own business or that we help you with. And that is stuff around layer 2 versus layer 3 presentation. Do we want the same subnets and same IP ranges available on the SecondSite that we have currently at the moment? That's either a yes or no question and generally driven by business demands or business security measures as no, we want to keep these completely separate or yes, we're okay with that. The product itself that we have can do either. It can re-IP addresses and give them a new IP, a new subnet on one side, or can retain the same. If you're going to be retaining the same, then this layer 2 connectivity does need to be secure. It needs to be giving you enough bandwidth for your environment, and it needs to give people the no visibility of the fact that they're running out of a second data center. And that comes down to link sizing. We have a link sizing tool. We have an agent that we can run in your current production environment, and once you've put in a few different variables and said I'm going to be protecting these 8, 10, 15 machines, we'll run it for a month or for a week, and it'll spit out a number for you and say, if you're going to be using SecondSite, you need to get a 47 megabit connection. And that's something that then we would go back to you and say, okay, you need that. Do you have current networking providers? Yes, we do. No, we don't. We already have an MPLS network. We don't really want to mess around with that. We will integrate nicely in with that if need be, or we'll give you a new link if need be and get you up and running. So that's just one of the benefits of being in the Zettagrid group and having that ISP. So the product itself, what actually is it kind of thing. So this is a logical view, and then we'll go into an actual view of it in a sec. So we have your data center and we have our data center. At the moment, we're both running VMware stacks, which is great. You have your physical or virtual firewalls or routers on your end. We have the link we just mentioned, and now we need to connect something on the other side. This is part of the engagement that we would go through with you, and then depending upon your requirements, we would either put a virtual router or firewall, or if your business dictates that no, we always must use ASAs because of some compliance methods, or because we already have an ASA sitting here that we want to use over there, great. We'll put that in, we'll colo that in with our data center, and then get the connectivity straight away. So that will allow your business to operate from a networking perspective exactly the same as you're currently comfortable with. Or if you want to go the less capital method and use a virtualized version of your firewall or one of our virtual firewalls, then it doesn't matter. In this example, you've decided to protect half your machines and you have iSCSI connections to your disk. Replicating across, we'll go through that later. We have NFS on our side at the moment. This just shows that it doesn't matter that we're running disparate or different storage or environments completely. So we've mentioned before that we don't do a full DR as a service solution and no one can. We do replication as a service. Similar with SecondSite, it's more than one thing. There are 3 components that we see with this, with the first being our virtual data center. That's really our bread and butter, and that's how we've grown and made our business, giving people the ability to run segmented or entire environments in the cloud. So as part of this product, we just tick that box straight away and say, okay, you've got your second data center in any one of the 11 data centers that we use, whichever one, I guess, is appropriate for you, whether that's in the same state because of sovereignty rules, or whether that's out of the state because you want to cover yourself just in case of a full flood in the whole state. That is up to you, and that's the flexibility that we'll give you. The second component is the actual replication platform itself. It's hypervisor-based, and it is, I guess, a best-in-breed product that we've integrated into our systems. What that means for you guys, and what that means for your production environment, is that it needs a management VM in your production environment. It needs a connector VM through to our environment. and then it needs an agent on each one of your hosts. That's how we actually capture the traffic going through the disk, and that's how we're able to not have to put things inside your VMs and tamper or impede your VMs at all from a performance level or from a security level. The third one being the VPN link. We need connectivity, whether that's an IPsec tunnel over the internet and you don't care about RPOs, or whether that's a full dedicated 10 gig fibre link. We can do either of them, and it really comes down to the talks that we would have in the initial design phase as to what RPOs you need and what kind of, I guess, protection the business wants, whether we're wanting a full dedicated link or whether we're going to share an existing link or whether we're just going to add it to our current MPLS environment. This is the product itself. This is just an example of one of our clients. This is what you will see day to day. When you get there in the morning and you have a look at, you bring up your system, are we protected? Yes, no. We see in this example, this is our view of the customer's environment. We see for this customer, they've got 33 VMs, they're all meeting SLAs, and they're protecting 5.5 terabytes. Pretty simple. And if it were flicked around the other way, from the client's perspective, they would be seeing a lot of info here as to current IOPS that we're using, current link saturation, and RPOs, whether they're close or far away from the desired need they wanted. When dealing with this solution, it isn't a one-size-fits-all, as we have mentioned. We can go back to the business, and you have gone back to the business and say, what do we need? What protection levels are we after? And invariably, there are going to be some SQL environments that they are wanting, 10-second or 10-minute recovery point objectives, and there's going to be static file servers and other environments that you don't need it, and you need a day or 2 days or a week, and you don't care. With the different protection levels that we kind of go through, they'll be implemented in and giving the client and giving you guys the ability to say, for these protection levels, I want to have these at 5 minutes, and I want to have these ones over here at 10 minutes, or these ones over here at 2 days. That is what dictates the link cost and the link size for the environment. So these are things you've gone through before, and then these are things that we can see here in the priority section there, and in the actual RPOs that we can see on the right there as well. How we maintain consistency is based upon a term called a virtual protection group. Things are placed into virtual protection groups, and they can be drawn from anywhere. They can be in the same vCenter server, they can be in a different vCenter box, they can be on the same host, they can be on different storage, it doesn't matter. But from the product perspective, from the SecondSite perspective, we then see them as a single unit, and that is what's protected at any given time. So that's how we get around the consistency problems that other platforms may suffer from. Alerting is a big one, and you say, well, that's fantastic, but if I've handed over my DR solution to you guys, how am I really going to know, if things are being protected properly, and how am I really going to know if there are problems or there's no problems? We have integration within your current vCenter box, and it'll come up as an additional tab in your vCenter server. It's also available from our own web portal, and we have access through our help desk from our vCenter boxes as well to see your environment if need be. So what this means for you guys is that email alerts can be sent out from your current systems. vCenter flags can be thrown up with your current systems. So if you're getting switches down, if you're getting notifications that you've had RAM panics in your environment, those alerts will come through via the exact same mechanisms. So should integrate very seamlessly into your environment and make sure that there isn't a shift, there isn't a change, there isn't something new that people have to learn or watch or getting another email spam from somewhere else. It's going to be the same things that you're comfortable with and that you know how to use. So it should mean for you guys that your reaction to it should be very quick or as same as your current environment. Talking about examples, I guess we need to kind of show you guys that we are actually using this. Whilst this is the launch, we do have a few customers already using the product, and we've used them as a tool to prove to them and to prove to us that the product is mature enough to use. And this customer in particular is a finance broker. They have a couple of $1 billion under their management, and they were wanting something to give them an APRA certification, which is, I guess, PCI compliance in the IT world for these guys. What that meant for them is that they were having to find something new because they didn't have a complete solution. They had a solution. Well, actually, they had probably 5 or 6 solutions, and it did involve log shipping. It did involve rsyncs over here. It did involve pretty much everything you can imagine, and that was because for every different product they had, they didn't have a single thing that could just nail it all. They had to do log shipping for SQL, and they couldn't give an RPO for SQL under or a significant RTO. This is why they have come through to us. They weren't able to test everything end to end, and when their APRA auditors came in, it was something that was raised for them last year as a big cross, a big failure, which meant that their own contracts with ANZ and Commonwealth and the other banks were at risk. So what they've been able to do, and why they came to us, is because we said to them, we can give you a one-stop shop and everything's protected, including all of these database servers and whatnot that they traditionally had big problems with. So what they've been able to do now is they've been able to get themselves an RPO, and that was the screen we saw before, that was them. They've got an RPO of around 3 seconds, and they're having RTOs. Difference for them being is they do have some additional things they want to inject in. They have a few batch file scripts that run a few waits to bring up other VMs. So before VM X comes up, I want you to make sure that website Y is accessible and I can read this string. They have a few of those rules put in, so their actual RTO is around the 10-minute mark for their entire environment. So that in itself, even though it is longer than we would prefer, 10 minutes is still fantastic. The product itself could have brought them all up in maybe a minute and get every VM contactable. This is something that they found is very important, and realistically is why we're here today. Them and their other customer, or another one of our customers that was doing the test this morning, doing full failovers, we found that it is just such a simple product, and it really is going to be one of those things that takes the market by storm, and why we've gotten in so quickly. And it really, not by chance, but it really is lucky that we have that networking company. We have that already mature virtualized platform in the cloud. We've just been able to add this additional tertiary product in and give people a complete solution. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're so proud of the product. What's the cost? The sales guys will go through properly, a cost for you, because realistically the cost is going to be different for everyone, because different links, whether you have links from us or links from someone else, how many VMs you're protecting, the amount of resources we have on our side set aside, whether we're going to reserve 30% of the resources or whether we're reserving the full 100% because you guys want to test any time you like or at all times of the day. These are things that are going to alter the cost, but I guess realistically we're looking at between, we've seen customers spending $5,000 a month, we've seen customers spending $20,000 a month, and these are things that you need to talk about with your own business, and you can talk about with us to give you an appropriate cost. But what's DR worth to you guys? What's DR worth to the business that you have? If you have outages for a day, what's the loss the business is going to see? Is that going to be nothing? If it's nothing, then don't get the solution. If the cost of their business is $50,000 a day, then what's $5,000 a month to protect your entire environment, and you can get your entire environment up from a web page just by going, yep, like it's clicker, just going, yep, and up it comes. So that's the flexibility that we come through, and we can go through proper networking costs and storage reservations and compute reservations, but I guess just kind of know that that's the ballpark that we're looking at, that you guys should start to think about, and compare that to what's the business going to accept. Are our current RTOs and RPOs from our untested disaster recovery or our fully tested disaster recovery plan, are they significant or are they sufficient enough for us moving forward? If yes, good. If not, have a chat to us and find out, I need a real cost from you guys. I want you guys to come in and have a chat with me, and I want to solve X, Y problem because the business can't be down for longer than 2 weeks. And the current systems we have relies on VM backups that we need to purchase hardware. So what do? There is a lot of talks you guys need to have with your business. As we've mentioned, this is a recovery as a service product, not a disaster recovery as a service. So there are a few things involved. So then this is going to be different for each one of you. Some of you are very mature in your offerings to your own business or in the businesses you guys represent or you guys have as clients, and others not so much. So talks you guys need to have with the business is things around these kinds of plans. We need to know what VMs we're protecting. We need to know about our MPLS. We need to know that if we are going to protect things in another data center, how we're going to do that. Are we going to expose our same networks because we have that level of trust? Or maybe we don't have the level of trust yet and we're going to expose layer 3 and we're going to use our product to re-RP your machines and have them as a separate entity as such, in a separate network segment. These are talks that you guys need to have with your business first, hopefully, and then talking through an integrator or talking through us if you need a bit of assistance in saying, well, actually, I've kind of got a DR plan, but I'm not too sure. Can you have a look at it for us, or can you give us a bit of assistance or point us in the direction of how we get to the maturity level that we need to be at to be able to say we're ready to use SecondSite. And that's what we want to do with you guys. That's why we're engaging partners, because we want partners to take on some of that workload. But we also have our own pre-sales and architecture teams to assist people to do that before they're ready to say, okay, I've used your tool, I know I need to get 23 megabit connection, I've already got my connection to these people, or no, I need you guys to give me a quote for that as well, and we already have Telstra links though with contracts, we're worried about that, can you integrate with us? Yes we can. And then once we're at that level, we can go through our sales guys and they start to ramp up and start you out on a proof of concept, start you out with a full implementation if need be. It really depends upon where you guys are at, and that's what we're going to help you out with. Just to reiterate, these are the benefits. No hardware cost at all. That really is a big one for people who, A, don't want to spend the money or the capital on getting a new data centre or having an off-site data centre, or they're in a refresh cycle now and they know that their NetApp SAN in their recovery site is about 7 years old and they're just crossing their fingers for the last couple of years that they haven't had to use it, but they know they need to refresh it and they know they need to do something. This is going to give you an option to do that. Reducing complexity, setting up disaster recovery stuff is hard. It's long, it's hard, it's tricky, there's things you forget about, there's some stuff that you just can't do. So engage us, use us directly or through partners to say, just give us that product that we know is going to give us an RPO and RTO that we need, and we'll say, yep, here you go. So what turns for you guys from a year-long engagement then comes down to just some networking discussions and some discovery sessions, which maybe is a couple of weeks. And then once we've gone through that process, the setup may be taking a day, 2 days, and then the product is just there. So they're big things. And the fact that you don't need to commit is one thing that I personally like and makes things a lot easier for me and for the other guys. You don't need to say, oh, for the next 3 years we might grow to, I don't know, this much, and then we need to protect ourselves for this, we need to size our disaster recovery site for what may happen in the future. You just do for now, do for what you want to protect for now. If things change, we change, and it's just seamless for you guys. There's no us coming back to you and saying, oh, you know, the SAN that you did buy for your recovery centre was only good up to the 10 terabyte mark and you've gone over that now, so you've done a big step increase. There's none of those step increases anymore, which is generally prohibitive for people in growing their environment and forcing people to right size for the next 3 years from now. That prevents all that. And as we mentioned, you can test it, it's easy. You can do prod failovers, it's easy. It's just quite simple. You need to build up confidence to get to the prod failover stage, but you'll get there because the product is mature, the product is pretty robust. So, I guess we want to try and get you into the product. We can give you 2 months off, the details of which I won't go into, but essentially, we're here today, we want you to get you in, and we're willing to tempt you with maybe a little bit of a teaser. So, you do have to talk to our sales guys and register your interest to get on board with the 2 months offer, but it is there, and we'll be here as well. Registering means chatting to us, or registering means getting on the website, but realistically, it's not going to cost you anything to do it, so just register it, and then if over the next couple of months you do decide to do it, then you're in, and you're great, and everything's good. So, that's essentially it. The product itself is hard, let's be honest. The product is hard. We take that on ourselves to make it for you as easy as possible. That's why I haven't shown you too much of the nuts and bolts. That's why I haven't gone into the hypervisor design. That's why I haven't gone into the agent design. They're all things that we've gone through ourselves and that we've nutted out and that we've had to fix all the failures. We've had to go through all the hard stuff. It's just easy for you guys now. As Steve mentioned before about the FedEx stuff, that's where we want to get to. We want to do something incredibly complex and give it to you as a nice, simple solution. And that's what we're trying to do, and that's really how we're trying to market it. So if you have those questions though, if you want to know, how certified we are, or if you want to know, how the pilot keeps the plane in the air, we'll go through it with you and we'll have those chats and convince you that it really is a robust solution. But just know that we've got confidence, so hopefully you guys can have confidence.